Yes.
All right. Thank you very much. We're gonna do this in a two-part approach. I'm gonna just breeze through a few slides, informational slides, and then Mo, my teammate, is going to jump into Acumatica and kind of go through the things that I talk about in the slides. So we'll kind of tie it all together with making the payment and receiving
Okay.
the payment. Okay.
Great.
So with that, let me share my screen. I'll give that a second to load.
You are good.
Okay, perfect. All right, we are discussing Acumatica payments today, and I'm going to first talk a little bit about some functionality that is available through Acumatica payments. So obviously the basics are the ability to accept a credit or debit card payment or an ACH payment within Acumatica and also through other methods as well, such as e-commerce, which Patrick talked to us about. Um, I did want to note that EFT in Canada, a little bit different, obviously, than ACH. That's going to be a new product that is being added towards the middle of this year. So it's not available yet, but it will be rolled out as should be this summer. We're slated for Q3, but looks like we'll have it a little bit sooner than that in 2025. So different areas where you can accept payment from your customer. So obviously inside of Acumatica is the most common place on orders and invoices in Acumatica. We also, beginning in 2025, R1 will have the ability to take a payment on a statement. So you can take a one-time payment on multiple invoices. You can also accept payments from within payment links, and Mo will show you what that looks like. Within those payment links, you have the option to present multiple invoices where they can check off tiles and pay multiple invoices at one time. We're also integrated with the Acumatica Payments portal, and within that requires a login where your customer would go in, see and pay their open invoices. So the difference there with the payment links and the portal is that a payment link is just that. It's a link that the customer would have inside of an email or inside of an invoice where they click on that, opens a browser, they make a payment. The portal requires a login. So it's sitting a little more securely behind a login, and the customer will have access to view and pay open invoices. We also support in-person payments through credit card devices that sit on a counter where a customer can insert or tap their credit card on that terminal. And then we've got now beginning also in 2025 R1 the ability to print those kind of payment receipts for the customer in person. One of the new features that was recently rolled out is the surcharge capability, which adds on a surcharge or fee to the customer. So it's passing on the fees that you pay for credit card processing back to the customer. Um, Something that we didn't think would be wildly popular in the B2B space, but we were proven quite wrong. It is very um, um, becoming more widely accepted. We do have what we call compliant surcharging. So there's still some states that do not allow surcharges to be passed to customers paying with a credit card. So we filter out those states. We also filter out debit card transactions as they are also not allowed to be surcharged. So it is taking into consideration the rules and regulations that are mandated by the card brands. A couple more things, level 2 and level 3 invoice data capture. And the reason why this is so important is this is This is adding line item invoice detail behind the scenes of a credit card transaction, and it applies to corporate and government card transactions, and it's lowering the cost of those transactions for you. So the more detail that is included with the transaction, the lower the cost is to process that payment. And then automated reconciliation, very popular. All transactions from those different channels that I listed above there are all being passed back to Acumatica. And then you have an automated reconciliation process to have all of that go to the correct GLs and applied to the correct customers, all of that happening within Acumatica. So why choose Acumatica Payments? Well, I think the main reason is it's built and supported and maintained by Acumatica. This is beginning in 2023 R2 version, is where it is available in the core. So there's nothing to install. It's just a checkbox that you activate and then configure. You will need a merchant account from Acumatica Payments, and then you configure Acumatica with that merchant account information. It is available today with many different integrations from e-commerce and point of sale, the Acumatica mobile app, and the different Acumatica portals, including the Acumatica CRM, and then the one I talked about, which is the kind of what we call a light version of CRM, which is the Acumatica Payments portal. So it's specifically payments functionality. And with it being built and maintained by Acumatica, you've got access to the latest feature releases. It's a secure environment. It's going to be tested before any new releases go out to make sure that everything is working and nothing was broken as new features are released. And then finally, real quick, I just wanted to talk about really how fast and easy it is for you to get signed up with Acumatica Payments. Speak with your VAR or your Acumatica representative. If you're not working with the VAR, they will connect you with a payments expert. They'll schedule a discovery call with you. They'll connect you with one of our resources that will be able to do a live one-on-one demo with you, so that you can invite your team to ask all of your questions and work through your different workflows that you have in Acumatica. It is a very fast approval process for your merchant account. It's a 10-minute click-through digital application that we send directly to the signer. We have our own in-house underwriting team that reviews the account, and we get merchant accounts approved very quickly. Now, the last part there, depending on how quickly you want to go, we can accommodate that. If you want to be up and live by March 1st, I would say give us a call today, and we can make that happen. If your dates are not as aggressive as March 1st, we can certainly assist with that as well. We can set you up in a sandbox if you need time for testing and making sure everything is working correctly before we convert over to your production environment. But essentially, the point there is that we'll work within your time frame to make sure that you're up and running by your scheduled go live dates. And with that, I'm going to turn the rest of the time over to Mo, and he's going to jump into Acumatica for us.
All right, thank you so much, Jeff. And let me just go ahead and share my screen here. And Jeff, I think you have to stop sharing. Okay, yes. There we go. All right, perfect. So we're within Acumatica now, and just continuing through our presentation, we saw how a sales order was created. We saw how taxes were added. And what I did here is just create 3 invoices of the invoice that we created for Alta Ace. And what I'm going to do is go through all the ways that you can take payments on these invoices using Acumatica Payments. So first, let's start with payment links. Payment links are a really great feature, and that really tends to be what our merchants are most excited about. So this gives you the flexibility of just emailing out your invoices or sales orders directly to your customers. They make a payment, and all of that syncs back into your system. So with our first invoice here, we have all of our items from our previous examples. And if we go over to the payment links, we can see that there's nothing created yet. So what triggers the payment link to create automatically and apply to your invoice is the action of releasing it. On the sales order, it's going to be a little bit different. On the sales order, you specify when you want to create the payment link, and then it's going to automatically apply. So now, since we released this invoice, we can go back over to our payment links tab, and we can see our payment link. And at this point, we would just email it over to the customer. They would make a payment, and everything's done. But let's go ahead and take a look how this appears from their perspective. So we'll just go ahead and print our invoice here. Right, perfect. So once your customers receive their invoice, right in the top right corner, you'll notice there's a QR code. Your customers can use their mobile device to scan this code and make a payment on this invoice, or they can follow the Pay Now link. And if we head over to the Pay Now link, we'll notice a couple things right off the bat. So the very first invoice that we see here, ending in 791, is the invoice that we sent out to our customer. This invoice is automatically selected for them. Additionally, you'll see more tiles here. These are just other open invoices the customer has with you in the system. And at this point, they can elect to pay multiple invoices all at once, and we'll just see it total up on the right-hand side. Additionally, the customer can see any line items associated with any of these invoices simply by hitting the View option. And on the top left, we have the ISV Society. This is just where your company logo and your branding is going to go. Right, and once we're ready to pay this invoice, we'll simply hit Pay. And up top, you'll notice credit card and ACH. So with Acumatica Payments, you're able to provide the flexibility to your customers for their payment methods. So here they're able to toggle between both credit card or ACH, use their banking information or their card to make a payment. And a great note on this is that the payment methods, you're able to restrict them based on customer class. So if you know you have a certain subset of customers that have very high ticket items or high invoices, what you can do is restrict them to only ACH, and that way you avoid a lot of the credit card fees that go with big transactions. So we'll just go ahead and process this invoice here. And we'll give this a second or two to communicate to the gateway. And now the customer receives a successful notification. Additionally, they'll also receive a receipt directly to their bill to email from Acumatica confirming the payment. And we can go ahead and exit out of here now. All right, so going back into Acumatica, I'll go ahead and refresh it here. And we can see right now that the invoice ending in 791 is in a closed status. Additionally, if you go to applications, we can see the payment that we just made using the credit card with a description that it was paid via payment link. And additionally, if we go over to payment links, we can see that the link is now closed. Now, if you prefer your customers to make partial payments or you want to give them that flexibility, we can certainly enable it, and the payment link will remain open until the full amount is paid on the invoice or the invoice itself is closed. All right, so going back to our invoices here, and I did want to touch upon surcharging before we continue with the next example. So surcharging, it's a very heavily debated topic. So you're passing on the fees over to the customer. We can certainly enable surcharging within your system, and I did want to show you how exactly it's going to look. So I have my other instance here with surcharging enabled. We have the same exact invoice, and we're just going to go over to our pay option. So here we see the total. There's nothing added just yet. Once we start typing in our card number here, and entering the card information. The system is automatically running a check on this card if we can legally surcharge it. So since we can, an additional line item appears under the total, providing a new total for the customer, and it shows the surcharge amount. Additionally, there's verbiage added to the bottom of the quick invoice here that just explains that this is the fee for processing a card. And given that there are certain laws and regulations prohibiting surcharging in certain states, our system can also detect that. So here, this card can be surcharged, but if we were to change this to a debit card, then the surcharge would be removed. And same thing using the zip code, if this transaction is coming from a state that prohibits surcharging, for example, Massachusetts, we can see that now once we've entered a code from a zip code, excuse me, from Massachusetts, that our surcharge disappears. All right, so to move on to our next payment method, we have the customer portal. And as Jeff was explaining, the customer portal is an extension of your system here. And that provides a login for your customer. Your customer is able to go into the portal, make payments, add payment methods, and see any previous invoices or other historic documents. So we'll just go ahead and release this invoice here. And we'll make a note that this invoice is ending in 792. And now I'll just drag over my other screen, and we're going to log in as Amelia, our customer for Alta Ace. We'll just give this a second or two to load. It's always slow when I'm sharing my screen. All right, perfect. So we're logged in as Amelia. So we can go over to our bills and go to payments. All right, perfect. So once we're at the payment screen, let's just go ahead and find our invoice here. So we can see the invoice ending in 792 right here at the bottom of the list. Additionally, the customer can see all of their open invoices, and any past due invoices are going to be highlighted in red. Up top, we have new card and new EFT. So your customers are able to store their own card information, ACH information as well, and any information that they store here is going to be available for you within your system. So let's go ahead and select our invoice ending in 792. And we're just going to use our stored card here that we have in the system, and we're going to process this payment. All right, perfect. So we've received a confirmation that our payment went through. And additionally, just like the payment link, your customer receives a automatic receipt confirming the payment. And additionally, some of the other features available within the portal, they can review previous statements, documents such as invoices, refunds, credit memos, and then any contracts. Additionally, the customer can add any additional users. So you can give access to the portal to the main user, and they can then give access to the rest of their AR team at lesser permissions. So the whole team is able to go in here, make any payments on their invoices, and then review any of the previous statements or documents that they may have. Right, so we'll just go ahead and exit out of the portal and go back to our invoice here, and we can go ahead and refresh. And we can see that our invoice ending in 792 is now closed, and we can see the payment made via the portal as our customer. So everything is automatic. There's no sort of manual entry. You're not hunting down payments. So however the customer pays you, it all just posts back directly into your system pretty much instantaneously. Right, to move on to our last example here, our invoice ending in 793. So the first two examples we saw are very convenient. You're giving the customers the ability to pay their own invoices, but let's say you have a situation where the customer likes to call in, provide their card number. We can certainly do that as well. So directly from our invoice here or from our sales order, we can select the pay option, which is going to open up the payments and applications tab. Here we have a couple different options under our payment method. So first one being Acupay CC, which is just going to be our credit card payment. We can also process ACH transactions. And then finally, we do have compatibility with POS terminals. So if you have a retail environment, you can certainly have card swiping machines, and that's going to automatically sync the payment back into Acumatica. In this case, let's go ahead and use our credit card. And then the next options that we see here is our previously tokenized cards. So any cards stored within the system or on the portal are, are automatically stored within the gateway. So there's no liability for you for storing this information. It'll all be tokenized, and you have the ability to reference their cards after they've been stored. For this example, let's just say they were using a new card, and the save card option here is what will tokenize that card and give you the ability to use that for future transactions. We'll go ahead and save our form here, and then we can either capture or authorize this transaction. And just like before, we'll go ahead and use one of our card numbers here to process this payment. And we'll give that a moment or two to communicate with the gateway, and we should have our status returned here pretty shortly. All right, perfect. So we see that this transaction has been captured. In the case that you have a decline, when processing manually, we'll see the decline option here. And additionally, we'll get a handy error message on the right-hand side letting us know that there's something wrong here. Right now that we captured our payments, whether it's through the portal, through the payment link, or by manually entering the card, it's time to look at the reconciliation. So we're going to head over to our banking module here, and we're going to go to import settlement batches. And what I see just working day to day with other merchants, if they're using third-party processors and not the native Acumatica one, the reconciliation process tends to be very manual. There's spreadsheets, there's third-party websites that they're referencing, making sure all the payments are included within the batch. But with Acumatica Payments, it is pretty automatic. Right, so here we have some of our previously closed batches. These can be brought into the system as soon as the batch closes, which is 9:30 p.m. Eastern. And with credit cards, you have next day funding, so the funds will settle the next day. We can then open our batch here, and then we can review any transactions that were processed within the previous batch. We can also see our refunds and our totals. We can see our card type summaries. And once the transactions are pulled in from the gateway, they're automatically matched to transactions in your system. Then a bank deposit is automatically created for you. We're just going to go ahead and open that here. And here, again, we can see a summary of what's included within our batch. We can see our deposit total. And the only step that we would need to do is remove the hold and release it to post this bank deposit, completing the reconciliation process. All right, and Amy, that's all I have for payments. I'll let you take it from here.
All right. Thank you so much.